Welcome into Ravens Rundown by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here. Thanks for joining us. Coming up on today's show, we're going to answer all of your Ravens rumors mailbag questions. Plenty to talk about in regards to Patrick Queen, Mark Andrews. We'll also talk about the Ravens Super Bowl chances, as we'll take an inside look at our NFL Daily Show from earlier today here at Chat Sports. Before we get to any of that, though, folks, want to make sure you're subscribed to Ravens Rundown by Chat Sports. We're closing in on 14,000 subscribers on the channel, less than 200 away from that next milestone for daily Ravens news and rumors, or live shows, watch parties, and to be a part of Q&A mailbags like you're seeing right here. Subscribe now for free for the latest happenings on your favorite team. We got you covered. Let's get started. Our first question in the mailbag this week, R.I.P. Bob Saget. What a legend, Bob Saget. What's Patrick Queen's future look like after this year? Great question. Patrick Queen, he was a name that came up a lot in the offseason when there were questions about his future and even into the trade deadline because the Baltimore Ravens ultimately did not take on his fifth-year option. And we've seen Patrick Queen have some ups and downs, right? Got off to kind of a slow start to his NFL career. Didn't really meet expectations of some sorts of what people thought he was going to be. And then lo and behold, we saw Roquan Smith show up. And that was a game changer. It was the best thing to ever happen to Patrick Queen was Roquan Smith's arrival, because we've seen Patrick Queen's play flourish. Roquan Smith next to him has looked like arguably the best inside linebacker in all of football. They have been a terrific 1-2 punch. And as far as the messaging goes, Eric DeCosta, the Ravens GM, said this offseason that they feel like that Patrick Queen is an all-pro caliber linebacker, and that although they don't have a deal done, that he is within their future plans. And I think about the Lamar Jackson situation last year. Remember, that went on for a long time before a deal was finally in place. But the Ravens stayed the course even when Lamar demanded a trade and still did whatever it took to get a deal done to keep Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. I think that the Ravens are committed to Patrick Queen. They're going to get a deal done, a long-term contract. I know money's going to be tough to finagle. I expect Ronnie Stanley probably to be the casualty to free up the cap space for Patrick Queen to stay, but I do think Patrick Queen ends up getting a long-term extension staying with the Ravens. What do you guys think? Our pinned comment today. Should the Ravens keep Patrick Queen? Should he stay around? Should they pay him that money to remain with the Baltimore Ravens? Weigh in that comment section and tell me if you believe he should stay there or not. Not Chugs, our host on Houston Texans Today, is asking, any chance Mark Andrews comes back this year? Well, Chugs, thanks for the question there. And it's a fascinating one, because if we go back in time to the hot tub time machine to about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we heard John Harbaugh say after the initial injury to Mark Andrews that he was likely done for the remainder of the 2023 season. And then they came back and said, well, it's not as bad as we thought. And then this week, when Harbaugh was asked about it again, Harbaugh said he's actually progressing at a very good pace, and we're not ruling it out. So Harbaugh, I hope he's not towing with my emotions here. I'm a big Mark Andrews fan. He's one of my favorite tight ends in football. But something tells me that they like what they're seeing of the direction Mark Andrews is progressing, that it's not as bad as they initially thought. We know the impact that he means to this Ravens offense here. And think about this. The Ravens have playoff aspirations, right? Championship aspirations, to be exact. Maybe it's not that he's back for week 17 or 18, but maybe he's back for the wild card round or divisional round, something like that, for Baltimore there. So I would be surprised if we saw him the regular season, but maybe there's something potentially for him to be back when the postseason rolls around. So I think it's unlikely, but I like what I'm hearing, at least the messaging, that they haven't completely ruled him out. So then the question becomes, when you look at the Baltimore Ravens, how good are they without Mark Andrews? They're tied for the best record in the AFC. They don't have any bad losses this year. Are they a contender if they don't have Mark Andrews there? Let us know. C for contender, P for pretender. Chime in. Today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks daily fantasy made easy. In Prize Picks, it's real simple. You get a $100 deposit match on your first deposit. Choose 2 or more players, any given category, more or less. Maybe you want to play along with fantasy points, receiving yards, pass completions. Maybe you want to mix different sports with the NFL, the NBA, college football. There's all sorts of different categories to choose from with Prize Picks. And here's what I got this week, a little combination of a couple different games. I got Lamar Jackson to have more than 195.5 passing yards, Geno to have more than 242.5 passing yards, and Justin Tucker to make more than 1.5 field goals this weekend. If I put, let's say, $20 down on that, then I'm going to be taking home $100 after all 3 of these hit. So play along with me on Prize Picks. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. The link is in the comments and description of today's video. Get that $100 deposit match on your first deposit at PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Promo code CLNS to play along today. Vince writes in, #NFL, do you expect a deep playoff run from a likely wild card team? Broncos, Cowboys, and Packers are hot right now. I know it sounds very ironic to be depending on the Dallas Cowboys when it comes postseason, but the Cowboys are playing great football right now. Dak looks like he could win the MVP. McCarthy and that offense look very good with the decisions that he's made with that group. The defense, Dan Quinn and company, doing a really good job. Micah Parsons has been fantastic. Cowboys, I could very well see. I know it sounds crazy to say when we mention their history, and how about them Cowboys and all that. Cowboys might even end up in the Super Bowl potentially. They're the best of those, I think, wild card teams that have a potential shot to make a run. Packers are very interesting. We've seen Jordan Love play a lot better football. The 2 big wins they had with Detroit and Kansas City, and the schedule is very easy for them down the stretch. Packers, I don't think, are a Super Bowl team, but I do like the way they're playing right now. Broncos, I'm still not sold on just yet. XX Epic Jet XX. A lot of X's there. Not going to that website. Says, with all the QB injuries and a down year for quarterback in Taysom Hill on pace for 2,000 yards and Christian McCaffrey having a great season, should the voters be voting for someone else rather than QB? Epic Jet, that's a very good question. And the way I see it, quite frankly, I hate that the MVP award has become a quarterback award. That here we are, it is the year of our Lord 2023, and no wide receiver has ever won the MVP in the NFL, which I just find absurd. I mean, Tyreek Hill, I think, should be considered as MVP candidate. Christian McCaffrey should be considered as an MVP candidate here. Yes, and it's not like there's some obvious quarterback that is having a record pace season of some sort. It's not like when Patrick Mahomes threw 50 touchdowns a couple of years ago or anything like that. So, yes, those guys should be considered definitely so when it comes to that MVP case as far as I look at it. Laura says, will the 49ers sign Zack Herz? So we talked about it on the channel this week. There are some rumblings that Zack Herz could ultimately end up in San Francisco, that the Niners have shown some interest, and the Niners are already loaded as is. They don't necessarily need Zack Herz when you have George Kittle around. But credit to John Lynch. There was a report, here it is, from Matt Barrows just within the last 24 hours or so, that you look at this Niners team, they remind me so much of what Howie Roseman's done in Philadelphia, of being aggressive, making those moves. This would line up with what they want to do. And Brock Purdy doesn't have the strongest arm. Get the ball to the middle of the field. Zack Herz could be a good option for that. You're not asking him to be your top tight end target. I like the idea of Zack Herz in San Francisco personally. Vince says, what is the trade value for Justin Fields? Do you think the Bears could still make the playoffs this season? Second part of that question, no. First part of that question, trade value for Justin Fields. So what I think it is, what I would do, and what his actual value is are probably two different things. Personally, I wouldn't give up more than a third-round pick for Justin Fields. I think I could live with myself of giving Fields a shot with a third-round pick. What I think is actually going to happen, though, is teams are so desperate when it comes to quarterbacks out there, and the demand for quarterbacks and giving Justin Fields a potential chance elsewhere outside of Chicago, outside of that dumpster fire where he's been set up to fail. I think somebody's going to probably be willing to give up at least a second-round pick, maybe more, to bring in Justin Fields, potentially speaking. Maxter65, who in the AFC do you feel comfortable as a legit playoff contender? I feel it's Baltimore, but their injury history is what scares me. That's a very fair question, Maxter, when it comes to Baltimore. You know, this is the time of year where we've seen Lamar get hurt the last couple of seasons. So that's a little scary. You're already without Mark Andrews, as we mentioned earlier in the show. Baltimore, if all goes right, looks like the best team in the AFC, but Kansas City, you have to think eventually they're going to turn a corner, that you have the best head coach in the league in Andy Reid, the best quarterback in the league in Patrick Mahomes. Eventually, Kansas City should figure out and turn it around, you would think. Jacksonville, for a moment, looked like that they were well on their way. Then they lost Trevor Lawrence. Miami hasn't beaten a good team. Right now, the AFC, I think, is down to Baltimore and Kansas City. Those are the teams that I feel the most confident in. But even with that said, I don't feel like I have a whole lot of confidence in those two. What's your Super Bowl prediction, by the way? Who gets there out of the AFC, and who gets there out of the NFC, and who wins it? Chime in that comment section. Let us know what your Super Bowl prediction is, and we will see you next time here on NFL Daily.